Well, we're going to talk a little bit about some diversification today. We got Nick McCullum on, and he is with Passiv.com. That's Passiv.com, who they do a great job turning your brokerage account into a modern portfolio management, linking a few things and giving you kind of a dashboard. And I think it's always important to not only do we talk a lot about, of course, real estate investing, but options for diversification and management of that. So I really appreciate your time today, Nick.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So let's start at the very beginning. How long have you been with the company?
I joined Passiv in December 2019. One of the co-founders is kind of a longtime friend of mine. The company was founded in 2017, and I've been kind of curiously following the journey ever since. Decided to join the team full time at the end of 2019.
Sure. And before we started hit the record button here, you mentioned that quite a few of your customers are in the real estate industry, and it was one of the reasons why you thought this might be a good fit to come on the show.
Yeah, so I mean, like most most high net worth individuals, investors, the kind of finance savvy types, some of our users, have some rental properties, some real estate, and then a large part of their other net worth is invested in the stock market. So the stock market component is kind of what we at Passiv are trying to help people automate and make better. But yeah, definitely we see lots of diversification in the people we talk to.
So can you talk a little bit about, like, what does Passiv do? How does it help investors manage that portfolio?
Yeah, so Passiv is kind of designed to be a way for you to automate the management of your public investments. So that would be like stocks or bonds or ETFs. Now, ETFs are just exchange traded funds. You can kind of think of them as similar to mutual funds, but they trade on a stock exchange just like stocks do. So what Passiv does is it pairs directly to your brokerage account. So let's say you have an account at TD Ameritrade or at Interactive Brokers or at Questrade or something like that, and you have investments there. What you would do is you would create a Passiv account, and then from within your Passiv account, you would link to your brokerage account. And we link through a kind of an authentication protocol called OAuth 2, which is pretty technical. But basically what that means is that we don't actually have to store your login information or anything else. What happens instead is we redirect you to their website, you authorize us to access certain information that we need, and then you get redirected back to the Passiv website. Now, once that's done, Passiv lets you set a target portfolio, and then Passiv does all of the work that you need to kind of calculate the trades required to get you as close as possible to that target portfolio. Once that's done, we let you rebalance with one click. So we send the trades off to your broker, they get executed, and they send us back a trade confirmation. And then Passiv periodically monitors your investment account so that whenever your portfolio drifts from your target portfolio, you'll get notified via email and get prompted to log in and rebalance again just with one click. That's kind of like the 30,000 foot overview of what Passiv does. I'm happy to kind of provide more detail on any of the components.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. You mentioned Ameritrade and a few other things. Like, what other type of integrations can you incorporate?
So right now we have integrations with a few different brokerages in Canada, which is where we're based. We have a pretty strong relationship with Questrade, so lots of integration there. And then down in the States, we have integrations with TD Ameritrade, Interactive Brokers, and Alpaca and Tradier, which are two smaller, kind of more developer-focused stock brokerages.
Sure. So it sounds like you can do some of the buy and sell right within your platform.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, once you set a target portfolio, Passiv will kind of constantly monitor your account and determine when you need to make trades to get closer to your target portfolio. And the mechanism that we do that through is this metric called portfolio accuracy, which basically calculates how close your actual portfolio is to your target portfolio. Now, what Passiv does is it allows you to set what's called a drift threshold, so that whenever your portfolio accuracy falls below that drift threshold, we will send you an email. To provide a really basic example, if you were kind of invested in two ETFs, let's say the SPY ETF, which is the S&P 500 index fund, and then the QQQ ETF, which is the NASDAQ index fund. So those are kind of two of the more popular exchange traded funds. And let's say you made a target portfolio that was 50% allocated to each of those two ETFs. Once you create your account and rebalance for the first time, you'll basically be right at 50-50 or as close as possible, given like how much cash is in your account. You'll always have kind of a tiny bit of cash left over, but that will be like, you'll be basically at 50-50 once that's done. as your portfolio changes over time and one ETF goes up and maybe the other ETF goes down, you'll drift away from your target portfolio a little bit. And whenever that portfolio accuracy metric drifts below your drift threshold, that's when Passiv will send you an email and tell you to log in to rebalance.
Okay. So just so that everybody can follow along, head over to, when I say Passiv, do that without the E at the end. It's passiv.com. And then if you want to follow them on Twitter, it's Passive Team. Nick, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you directly, is there a best way to do that?
Yeah, so you can just email me directly. My email is nick.mccullum@passiv.com. Or you could also find me on Twitter. My handle is Nick J. McCullum.
Sure. So how does the system work? Like, you talked about logging in to do a balance. Is that the trigger that has to happen to constantly be in sync with these brokerages?
Yeah, so we kind of have native integrations with these brokerages where we have access to their APIs. Now, an API is just an application programming interface, and I've always thought of like the easiest way to understand what an API is it's kind of like a tool that your software can use to control or use someone else's software. So basically, the Passiv platform uses brokerages APIs to execute trades or read account data or do those sorts of things from the brokerage's software. Now, not all brokerages have open APIs, but for the ones that do, we're kind of slowly working to get more integrations. And the benefit of that, instead of using a different technology like screen scraping, where you actually log in, you have to store the customer's account information and log in and read their account information from the website. The benefit with APIs is that they're generally a lot more backwards compatible. So with screen scraping, anytime the firm that you're integrated with changes something about their website, you would have to kind of modify or rebuild your integration. But when you're integrated with their API, most API providers guarantee backwards compatibility, so that if you're integrated with their API now, there's a really low chance that that API will stop working in the future, given the integration that you've set up.
Right. And I'd have to think it's far more secure using the API as well.
Yeah, well, for us, like we see benefit in not having to store our customers' account information. We're really happy with where our cybersecurity is at, but in case anything happened, there's just a lot less risk if we don't have that stuff on our servers and it just remains on the brokerage's servers instead.
Right. So what type of automation when it comes to the investing is available to the user?
Yeah, Passiv, I mean, we, like a lot of software tools, we have customers who use us in all sorts of different ways. So we have some people where they link Passiv to one account, and within that one account, they might just have one ETF, and they use Passiv to just make sure that there's not any idle cash in that account, so that anytime there's cash sitting there that they could use to buy some of the ETF, they'll get an email notification. That's probably like the most basic use case of Passiv. We have other users where they have integrations with multiple brokerages, and at each of those brokerages, they have multiple accounts. And then the rebalancing engine of Passiv kind of relies on this concept called a portfolio group. And a portfolio group is just a group of accounts that you pair together so that they can all be assigned to the same target portfolio. So, in the most complicated example, you might have multiple brokerage connections with multiple accounts at each brokerage and multiple portfolio groups with different target portfolios. And the rebalancing engine can kind of account for all of that and do its thing. It might take a bit longer to do your calculations, but it can handle all of that as well. So I would say, like most software, we have some users who use it for really basic functionality, and then we have other power users who really kind of, push Passiv to the limits and do basically everything they can with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what this is especially interesting for is that, a lot of people, and I don't know if we want to say it's been something that's been drilled into our minds, that when you're investing in some of these, whether it's a stock or retirement accounts or whatever, you kind of set it and forget it. I think it's one of those things where it'd be nice to have a dashboard so that you can keep an eye on it on a more regular basis, so that you can see actually what's going on.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, I think one of the really cool things about Passiv is that you can have investments at multiple different institutions, but you can use Passiv to manage all of those investments from a single centralized dashboard.
Sure. So outside of these initial thoughts and concepts here, regarding automation and the single dashboard, what are some of the other things that can be done with Passive?
Yeah, so two cool things that I think a lot of our users get a lot of benefit from are our reporting features and our goals features. So I can talk a bit about both of those right now. The reporting feature is basically similar to like the reporting feature at any of your financial institutions. It would allow you to see things like your contributions over time and your performance, your dividend income, those sorts of things. Now, our performance feature is it's built a little differently depending on which brokerage you're at. And if you're at some of the brokerages, especially down in the US, it might not be populated the same as if you were in Canada at some of our older, better supported brokerages, but we're always working to make it better. And I think the thing that people like about that reporting feature is that it's really focused on the things about your investments that you can control. So namely, one of the things that's presented with the most kind of emphasis on that reporting page is the contributions that you've made to your investment account over time. That's actually on my reporting dashboard. That's the thing that I've selected to show up at the top. It shows you kind of month by month how much you've contributed or withdrawn to your investment account. And while you don't have control, or at least not complete control over the performance of your investments, you do have a lot of control over what your contributions are. So for me, I like that kind of behavioral aspect is shown at the start. We also measure your contribution streak. So that's basically how many months in the last 12 months have you contributed to your investment account? So that's shown prominently as well. Then there's other things like your dividend income and your investment fees paid over time, how high those are. Lots of really interesting things like that could show on that reporting page. So that's something that we know our users tend to love. The other feature that I mentioned was our goals feature. And the thing that people like about the goals feature is that it's designed so that you can set an investing goal. So an example might be, I want to have $1 million in this account by this date. And then once that goal is set, you can go to the goals page within Passive and see the progress of that goal over time. There's also other functionality too, like when you're setting up the goal, you can say, if I contribute this much and get this rate of return, what happens to this goal? Like, am I going to achieve it or not? It all gets plotted on graphs to make it very easy to visualize your financial progress over time. So aside from the stuff we already talked about, I would say that our reporting feature and our goals features are two things that our customers really use and tend to like a lot.
Right. One of the things that I think is something that when I took a moment and looked at some of my retirement accounts, it was shocking how many fees and everything are being paid. And this type of thing would probably shed some light on what's actually to try to trim down some of those costs.
Yeah, totally. I mean, at Passive, we're big believers in investing in low cost ETFs for the long term. We have users, like I said, who use our software in lots of different ways, and not all of them invest in ETFs, certainly, but we think, the lower fees offered by ETFs are really kind of a big benefit to people, especially if they can get switched over from mutual funds at a young age and benefit from a long time horizon to, compound those reduced fees over time.
Sure. Well, let's say if somebody's just getting started, and they don't really have a brokerage account. Is that something that you can help them set up?
Yeah, so at Passive, we actually don't, we're just a software company. We're not a registered financial advisor or a broker dealer or anything like that. But I will say, it's not too hard to get set up with a brokerage account. What I would do is I would just Google around and, look for some reviews on good brokerages. Up here in Canada, we're big fans of Questrade. That's who I use personally. And then down in the States, I know TD Ameritrade has a big presence. Charles Schwab has a big presence. Interactive Brokers has a big presence. So it kind of depends on like what your goals are for what you're trying to achieve. But I would say it's pretty hard to go wrong with any of the big players. So getting set up with a brokerage account is definitely like your first step to get started if you've never invested in the public markets before.
Sure. And then I know that you typically wouldn't provide advice regarding what to buy and sell, but what kind of historical data is presented to the user so that they can make those informed decisions themselves?
Yeah, I mean, Passive is designed as a tool to help you manage your portfolio. It's not a financial advisor or an investment advisor. So we actually don't provide any sort of advice anywhere within the app on what to invest in. What most people do though, if they're not familiar with how to get started, is they'll just kind of self-educate, read some books, read some good investing blogs, and then figure out what kind of model portfolio or what kind of asset allocation that they want to invest in. Once they've actually already made those decisions on their own, that's when they could use passive to help them like with the implementation stage. But in terms of trying to decide what to invest in or what you should buy or hold or sell, passive actually is kind of not in a position to help you with that, just because of where we are in the regulated space. You know, we don't have our financial advisor license or anything like that.
Right. No, one of the things that I went to your site and to check out a couple things, and one of the things that I really wanted to call people out to and make sure that they go to passiv.com is your blog. I mean, there is a lot of free information out there for people.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we think a lot of people have trouble with getting started in investing is just like the information overload. It's an industry where there's a ton of jargon, there's a ton of special terms, there's frankly a lot of paperwork typically to get started. So to the extent that we can kind of empower investors through education, that's something that we're really happy to do.
Sure. So, one of the questions that I would definitely ask then, and I know that this would be something on the top of a lot of people's mind, is how does Passiv make money on doing this and providing this platform?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like they say, there's no free lunch, so we have employees to pay and servers to pay for and stuff. So we do have a revenue model, and what we do is we try to keep things completely simple. We know in the financial industry, transparency is not always like a prime priority, but for us, it's really simple. So we have two different versions of Passive that you can sign up for. The first version is called Passive Community, and that one's for free, and it will be free forever. Now it just has a bit more of a limited feature set. So there's things that you can't do on Passive Community. One of the more notable ones is one-click trades. So if you actually want to use Passive to rebalance your portfolio with one click, then you would have to upgrade to our paid version. Now, that version is called Passive Elite, and the pricing model for that is dead simple. It is just $99 a year paid with your credit card. And we have a money-back guarantee. So if you're not happy with Passive and how it's helping you, then you can just reach out to us and we'll happily refund you and probably ask you for some feedback on what we could have done better.
Sure. So, I told you that this was going to be pretty a different conversation here today. But before we wrap things up here, I always want to ask if there was a question that you wished I would have asked you here today, or any other feature that we probably should have covered.
That's a great question. I would say, the only thing we never really talked about, I guess, is like our mission as Passive as a company. And our goal is to kind of make DIY investing accessible for everyone. So if people want to use a financial advisor, we think that can definitely add a lot of value if you're partnered with the right professional. But we also want to make it as easy as possible for anyone to manage their own investment portfolios without anyone's help. So our mission overall is to make DIY investing kind of accessible for everyone. So to the extent that we can do that through a software tool, that's great. And we're always kind of looking for more opportunities to do that.
Sure. Well, that does lead me to one other quick question. Some of us would have a day job. Can you associate those brokerages that are associated with 401k and other things into Passive as well?
Yeah, so I mean, the 401k market in the United States especially is absolutely massive. That's definitely a market that we would love to help out eventually, but right now it's not something that we do, no.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time today, Nick. I think, like I said, it's really important as real estate investors that we consider, balancing our portfolio and looking at alternatives and different investments. This looks to be a great platform that provides that single pane of glass for everybody. Make sure you head over to passiv.com, or on Twitter, it is Passive Team. But Nick, again, did you want to shoot out your contact information if people wanted to reach out?
Yeah, so my email is nick.mccullum@passiv.com. And I guess the offer that I'll make to your audience is that if anyone wants a demo of Passive to see how it works before they kind of get started, just send me an email and I'd be happy to kind of, hop on a video call, show you how the software works. I'll even just show you kind of how I use it to manage my own personal investments. Cause I think if you're going to be recommending something to people, it should be something you're happy to use yourself. I love the product. I'm really happy with how it helps me save time and save money. So if anyone wants a demo, just fire me an email at nick.mccullum@passiv.com.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Nick. And I hope we can chat again sometime. There might be something else here that I'd like to chat about with you on a deeper level.
Awesome. Thanks a bunch, and we'll talk soon.